Still pretty hot and sticky here in France. Let's get some business news for you now. Kate Moody is here. And Kate, last week, Donald Trump reached a compromise, didn't he, with the European Union over trade tariffs. And now there are signs he might be reaching out to China as well.
That's right. That's according to Bloomberg anyway. Talks between the world's two largest economies have been stalled for weeks since the announcement of tariffs on billions of dollars worth of each other's goods. Now, Bloomberg says that representatives of each government are in touch about the conditions under which they could re-engage. It's far from an official truce or even negotiations, but the prospect of a de-escalation is already being welcomed by investors and businesses alike. Now, the effect of recent tariffs is already being felt in some sectors. U.S. agricultural products are being taxed 25% more than they used to be, meaning imports of fruit, vegetables, and grains are more expensive. France 24's team in Shanghai has been finding out what that means for consumers and suppliers.
Fruit and vegetable market is one of the largest in China. Here, the products are imported from all over the world. New Zealand apples, Australian oranges, and American cherries.
I am checking the quality of these cherries. They're not bad.
Chinese consumers love American cherries, but these days there are fewer and fewer for sale. The reason? A 25% import tax. A measure taken by Beijing in response to the new tariffs imposed by the United States on a variety of Chinese imports.
Last year, a crate of 5 kilos of cherries cost us about €35, while this year it is about €50. We are patriots. Americans have increased their taxes, so we will boycott them.
Each year, China imports 100,000 tons of cherries. More than a quarter come from American orchards. But with the recent tax increase, importers could very quickly be turning to other markets.
If the taxes continue to increase, we think we'll import from elsewhere, like Canada, where the cherry season is the same as in the US. If the tax on Canadian cherries doesn't increase, then they'll become very competitive.
Because American cherries have become so expensive, China is looking to produce more of the fruit itself. Local farmers could benefit from the trade war between Washington and Beijing.
In April and May, China is able to produce greenhouse cherries. So the fact that American cherries cannot get into the Chinese market is a very good opportunity for Chinese cherries. For our farmers, there is now a market to occupy.
Since the new tariffs were introduced, imports of American cherries have decreased by 75%.
Trading action now. We've seen markets rebound following that report about possible trade talks. Wall Street is rising. The Dow Jones up about 160 points this hour. Exporters like Caterpillar and Boeing up 3% and 2% respectively. The tech-heavy Nasdaq hopes to break a 3-day losing streak. Investors will be tuning into Apple's latest results released in just under an hour's time, seeing if it can buck the trend of losses in the tech sector. The major European indices closed up earlier on, the London FTSE 100 leading with gains of about 0.6% on the close. The Eurozone economy grew less than expected in the 3 months from April to June. New official data showed GDP expanding 0.3%, down slightly from the first quarter as exports slowed. Inflation was slightly above the 2% target this month, while unemployment remained at its lowest level in a decade. The figures underscore official concerns about a possible slowdown in the bloc. The ECB has highlighted its concerns by keeping interest rates at record lows until at least next summer. Members of the UK government are on something of an international charm offensive as London and Brussels race against the clock to reach a post-Brexit trade deal. Foreign Minister Jeremy Hunt is in Paris, a day after being offered talks on a free trade deal in China. Prime Minister Theresa May is also expected in France on Friday. Meanwhile, Trade Secretary Liam Fox was in Japan, where he said the UK might attempt to join the revamped Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was signed earlier this year by 11 countries after Donald Trump withdrew the United States. Take a listen.
We have calculated that the combined GDP of the TPP 11 plus the UK will be the same as that of the EU minus the UK.
We share so much of a similar outlook, not least on the need to maintain an open, liberal, free trading system based on international rules, makes us ideal partners in the years ahead.
Business headlines now. BMW has announced plans to build a new factory in Hungary, its first new facility in Europe in nearly 2 decades. The billion-euro plant will eventually produce up to 150,000 vehicles per year. The German auto giant currently manufactures a number of models in the US and UK, but is looking for new options to protect it from global risks, including trade tariffs and Brexit. Facebook says it has deleted 32 accounts or pages which have been identified in, quote, coordinated inauthentic behavior to allegedly influence political activity ahead of November's midterm elections in the US. The social network has not yet identified who's behind the fake accounts, but said they had spent more than $11,000 on Facebook and Instagram and saw similarities to Russian-backed accounts exposed in 2016. Facebook shares rose 1% on Tuesday. And taxi drivers have blocked the streets of Madrid again as a nationwide protest against ride-hailing rivals stretches into its second week. The Spanish government failed to broker a breakthrough during Monday's talks with taxi unions and is next meeting with representatives from Uber and Cabify. Taxi operators want more regulation of the industry and a limit on the number of non-taxi licenses issued to competitors. The state-funded car-sharing program known as Autolib is in its final hours here in Paris. The 4,000 electric cars must all be returned by 11 p.m. Some will be reused in other French cities, others sold, and about half will end up on the scrap pile. Catherine Clifford has the story.
A last cruise around the streets of Paris and its suburbs for these little grey cars. 7 years after its launch, Autolib is cutting the ignition, despite a bright forecast back in 2011.
I'm certain this will be a revolution for the way we plan our transport around the city.
Despite totting up 150,000 subscribers and 11,000 trips a day in 2018 so far, Autolib has had to face up to tough competition from electric bikes and ride-sharing apps. It's also gained a reputation for damaged and dirty vehicles, falling into the red in 2017. This June, the 103 communes making up the Île-de-France region around Paris voted to end the contract with the Bolloré Group, refusing to chip in to pay off a debt of €293.6 million. Several competitors, such as Renault and PSA, are already jostling to fill the gap to be left by Autolib. For now, though, the empty parking spots will be handed over to electric vehicle owners.
Right, return to public transportation for a lot of drivers then in Paris.
Despite the heat. All right, Kate, thank you very much indeed. Kate Moody there with the business. We're taking a short break. Don't go away.